Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, presented by our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Frederick Douglass basketball's own Sean Smith. Sean, what's going on, buddy?
Man, I'm fantastic, Jack, and I'm sure you had a good time last night covering that game at Rupp Arena, and there's a lot to talk about. 41's the magic number.
I think Kobe Brea said it the best. Like, only God could write that script for Mark Pope's debut, a 103-62 victory over Wright State, where, we have to talk about the competition level, what it means, what we can learn from something of that magnitude when, it's a Horizon League team that lost its two leading scorers, introducing a brand new head coach in year one. There were some different hurdles and adversities that they were going to have to overcome as is. But I also don't want fans to look at this game as a complete throwaway in terms of competition going, oh, well, we'll wait till we play Duke, because there was so much that was revealing on tape that should have fans feeling really, really confident going into the season, but B, going into high level competition that we will see a week from today, Sean. A week from today, we will be going into State Farm Arena preparing for the Fighting Cooper Flags of Duke for Mark Pope's first true test as the head coach of Kentucky. So there's just a lot to soak in and marinate and dive into, but big picture, there was just a lot to love about what Kentucky put together in its 103-62 victory over Wright State.
Yeah, there is, and it's one of those things, and you said it best. Like, this isn't a game that you just throw away and look at it. Like, this was a step up in competition. You're playing D1 competition. It's your season opener. It's the first taste that people really get of Kentucky basketball under Mark Pope, and the one that goes to the left side of the win column, or it goes to the loss column. It mattered. And they showcased everything that we have been talking about, the discipline that they have and who they are. The system is strong. You saw execution with an opening game set with a rip screen and a lob right out of the gate. So you're seeing that there's situations that they're going to go to a set to start a game. They're good in BOBs and in baseline out of bounds situations. They're good in the half court. They're elite in transition. Like, you're seeing all levels of it offensively, and you're seeing some things defensively too. But for the most part, you're seeing balance across their roster and the depth that they have, especially in the backcourt. You're seeing some depth in the front court, but also some potential that I think they need to keep bringing Brandon Garrison along, because I do think that that's a body and a guy and a piece that they need as they get into late December, January, and SEC play. But for the most part, Jack, game one, I think they impressed. They have things to build on going into Saturday before you get to next Tuesday night, where you really get it kind of that first checkpoint of who you are.
The headliners, obviously, Amari Williams. As soon as the tape gets rolling, Amari was just the headliner. I mean, if you're talking about, in football terms, the first one you send off the bus to intimidate the opponents, Amari Williams was that guy as the 7-foot, 262-pound center, bringing the ball up the floor, finding his teammates, the facilitating, like you said, finding Andrew Carr on the lob to open the game. But it was so much more than that, because the turnovers, we got to work on, the timing and the communication and just some of the things that come with being, a November 4th game. Like, those are things that are going to happen. But the spurts and the flashes of brilliance for a guy that spent 4 years in the CAA at Drexel had you go, how in the hell did this guy last so long playing at Drexel? Like, how did a high major team not cheat their ass off to go steal him away 2 seasons ago? There's just so much there physically. Athletically, he is his own specimen, but it's so much more beyond that make you go, man, like, there's a reason why Mark Pope dropped everything that he was doing the day he signed with Kentucky and said, that's my guy. I got to get him first, and then everything else is going to take care of itself from there. Amari Williams is a dog. He is incredible in the way he just set the tone on both ends of the floor for Kentucky to just kind of let everything else play out. Otega was a superstar in his own right, the early MVP. We'll talk about him. Other guys were, individual playmakers, but there wasn't anybody that set the tone better than Amari Williams to get that thing rolling and kind of let us get to a 41-point win.
We talked a lot about this system leading up to this year, about how it was so impactful at BYU, and we talked about Khalifa, how he was a string that attached the right side of the floor to the left side of the floor. That's Amari Williams. That is him. Now, when you're talking, but better, when you're talking about a feel for the game, though, and like obviously free throw percentage and things like that needs to improve. Like, he doesn't have a lot of touch with a shot, but his floor vision, his physicality, the ability to lead the break and shovel passes to guys running to the rim. There's multiple times that I saw him change and reverse the ball and swing it and just make an extra pass that I'm like, how in the world does this guy at his size have this vision? It's almost a cheat code. And then the ability to catch in the middle third of the floor and rip and go and have the physicality to finish at the rim and play above the rim out of some of these lobs and things that Kentucky runs. Like, he's really, really good. And you get away with this with him not, like, we know that his shot is not his strength. He's not going to stretch the floor a ton. But when you stretch it at the other 4 spots and he has the vision to make these backdoor cuts and these backdoor passes on these 45 cuts and find these shooters, then it works, because he's so versatile in everything else that he does offensively. Even though he's not shooting the 3 ball, you got plenty of dudes that can, that space the floor. And he's just different, man. Like, when I turned on the tape today and rewatched, and the first thing that popped off to me was when he went the length of the floor and made a pass, and it finished with an Otega Oweh dunk.
That was a special sequence right there.
I'm like, you're different when your 5-man can do that. And when your 5-man also can rebound his tail off and set the tone at the rim defensively, but also has the vision to keep you flowing offensively and be a weapon that you can facilitate through. And the thing is, this system is not successful if you don't have a 5 that anchors you offensively to flip the ball from right to left. And he does that exceptionally well, while also adding other areas to Kentucky's game offensively and defensively. Like, he's a very, very good player, that it actually does blow my mind that he is just now getting this opportunity and didn't really play a ton of minutes before here. Like,
I don't know.
It's a good thing it happened.
Like, and think of that, because it took this opportunity. Mark Pope, they did that with Ali Khalifa. I mean, it was the exact same scenario last couple cycles with him at BYU, and them looking at Ali's film and saying, what am I missing here? And again, Ali in a vacuum is not half the player that Amari Williams is, but it's the same vision of like, am I the only one seeing this? Why is nobody else in college basketball seeing this? So it kind of presents this opportunity for you to just say, I mean, we're not really competing with much of anybody right now to land this guy, but he's going to be the guy. I mean, the offense is going to run through his hands more often than not, almost every single possession. So just the value of his get right away and what it meant for him. I love Mark Pope talking about him afterward, saying, when he gets the ball and he starts pushing in transition, that they have no idea what's going to happen. They're like, it's 400 pounds of raw steel, man. Like, once he gets moving, he might go dunk it on your head. He might, initiate the offense. He might, dish a Magic Johnson no look pass to Otega Oweh for the punch and, coming down the lane. We have no idea. That's the fun part. You could kind of sense his giddiness as a fan of basketball, having a guy like that on his team, the same way that we get the same level of excitement watching it unfold. He's like, I'm right there with you guys. It's a blast. I have no idea what's going to happen next. That's how it should be. It's the read and react. It's kind of what we've been talking about, that you want those type of guys that you just trust to put in positions to kind of just let the system play out organically. Amari is the guy, man. He's awesome.
We've talked so much about this system and what makes it strong. And And his position to me is one of the most important factors in why it's strong. You got to be able to play through that 5. Like if you don't have the initial pitch ahead and transition or the rim run, you're playing through the 5-man. That gets Kentucky going. They do an excellent job with their pace. They play so fast. There is no stopping. There's no giving the defense a break. It is an advantage, and it's Kentucky with the advantage, and they're making you pay. Like there were multiple possessions last night where Wright State's back was turned in transition, and they start to turn late at the top of the key. Too late then. And you're talking about the ball changing sides of the floor, and then you got a corner 3 because guys are so disciplined. But when you're talking about Amari, Jack, you got Lamont Butler that can play the 1. You've got Kirk Rissa that's playing the 1. When the ball's in Amari Williams' hands, he's a 1 at his size because of his vision and the ability to pass the basketball. Like that's almost like handing it to another point guard in the middle third of the floor, and you got all these actions going right. You got these triples, you got these singles and doubles away, and you've got a guy that's just so in tune with who he is and his floor vision that he's able to see out of some of these rotations and things defensively. Like if teams start to trap Kentucky in areas of the floor, man, they're going to make you pay because they've got really good passers at multiple spots on the court. Like it's fun to watch. Like I knew they could be good offensively, and I know some people outside of this fan base are probably thinking, man, y'all are getting carried away after 2 exhibitions and 1 season opener. No, I promise you what they're doing offensively is different than what we've seen for the last decade to 2 decades here. Like this is different. Then how about this? You're throwing a little bit back to Rick Pitino when it comes to managing games in situations like you see Kentucky go with a 1-2-2 full court pressure out of a timeout. That's Mark Pope mixing it up. That's keeping teams off balance. I'm seeing really good coaching. I'm seeing guys that have played a ton of college basketball, have a ton of experience, but I'm seeing the way that they play with a pace in all areas of the game, especially rebound, rip, and go. Boy, this could be fun. And I think they're going to put some major pressure on Duke a week from now.
And here's the most impressive part. We'll talk about some of the individual standouts. Otega Oweh was absolutely tremendous. Kobe Brea being the coin flip 3-point shooter we've known he can be, been kind of inconsistent getting to those open spots and having the opportunity to kind of get his game off a little bit. I thought we got to see the best version of Kobe Brea unleashing his inner Steph Curry. That was a blast as well. But the big picture positive takeaway from me coming out of that was, and Pope talked about it a little bit on radio after the win, that they scheduled Wright State specifically as a defensive test for them, knowing that Wright State entered or closed out the college basketball season as the number 1 field goal shooting team in college basketball, the number 4 scoring team in college basketball, and the number 9 3-point shooting efficiency team in college basketball. Lost the 2 leading scorers, but brought back the Horizon League preseason player of the year, brought back key starter, 43% 3-point shooter, a guy that is going to, I believe you're a 2nd team all conference preseason. 2 dudes with the same style, with the same, bringing back the associate head coach to take over the program. So going to be a similar identity, similar style. He scheduled this game specifically as a defensive test for his team to say, all right, what do we got? What can we be here on that end of the floor? We know that the offense is going to kind of do its thing, and we know we're going to have individual playmakers and guys that get their game off and all of that. But what can we be on the defensive end? And for them to hold Wright State to 62 points, 20 points fewer than what they averaged a season ago, 35% from the field, 18.5% from 3, while forcing 12 turnovers, getting them out of their game, really getting up, face guarding, being active in the passing lanes, really mucking things up with that 2-headed monster, spearheading the defense with Lamont Butler and Otega Oweh. Those 2 just kind of countering back and forth with Amari Williams anchoring the front court. There was just so much to love defensively that really I didn't, I loved the film offensively. It was fun. It was exciting. But the most impressive takeaway for me is just what they were able to get off with on the defensive side of the ball. Not every team is going to be Wright State. They did lose some talent, but in a defensive test specifically designed to see if they can slow down a high octane offense, they pass that thing with infinite flying colors. I mean, you could not have been more impressed with them on the defensive end.
Well, I was texting you earlier today, and I told you that, to me, how good they are in and I'm getting to the defensive side with this. How good they are in transition offensively motivates them to be good defensively, if that makes sense, because that's how you get out and run. You get stops, you get these misses, and then Kentucky's making you pay in transition. But the other side of that too, Jack, is they're so good off of makes at getting the ball out and going. And these guards banana cutting, getting butt to the sideline and getting angles, up the sideline, skip passes, rim runs. To me, all of those areas being good motivates you to be even better defensively. And I said this a few weeks ago, having to defend the sets and the actions that Kentucky runs better prepares you defensively to defend some of these actions that you're seeing. Because some of these actions that Kentucky runs, a lot of other teams run them too. Kentucky wasn't running these things in the past. And when you go out and you try to defend them and you try to scout them, it's different if you don't defend them every single day in practice. But when you're defending these twirls and you're defending zoom and you're doing all these other things and these inverted ball screens and things that Kentucky will do at times, it's preparing you to face these things in games too. So I do think this is a team with the physicality of Amari Williams, Lamont Butler being physical, Otega Oweh being physical, the length that they got at some spots. I think this is a team that can be really good defensively. Not sure how good yet, but I think we're seeing enough of a blueprint there and a foundation that's not going to be an area of concern that we're talking about in January, February being, man, this is a team that's 7th or 8th in the country in offense, but they're 85th in defense. I don't think that's going to be the case this time around. And I think you're already kind of seeing that play out early on.
Wright State wasn't a team that launched a ton of threes. It wasn't a run and gun style of play. It wasn't just the track meet in the traditional sense, but more so just throwing new wrinkles and it is a complex half court offense that really does make you think and try to think 2-3 steps ahead. It was just a test. It was a defensive test that it wasn't going to be some vanilla no show that you're not going to be really pushed on that end of the floor. It was one that they were going to kind of test you with some very unique wrinkles as schematically, but also as individual talents that could really kind of throw some wrenches into your plans and complicate things. So it was just a unique test for them, and to see them kind of adjust and jump out to a lead the way they did and make them react to Kentucky as opposed to the other way around. That was the part that really stood out to me the most. Leaving the game, though, from an individual perspective, there wasn't a guy that just kind of lingered more in my mind, especially watching film, than Otega Oweh. Just a guy that, we named him, that you named Ansley Almanor. We'll talk about him in a minute as well. As your sleeper, I named Otega as my sleeper, yeah, but not like that. It was undervaluing him, even calling him a sleeper, because I thought about it in the role sense where, he's going to be the guy when things kind of break down a little bit, that he's going to be the guy to go get you paint touches. He's going to be the guy that gets you the finishes at the rim. If there is an ISO opportunity and a mismatch, that he's going to be the one to kind of dig his heels in and go. But that was just so short-sighted in terms of, how can he sustain the shooting success? He goes 3 for 3 from 3. We know the splits between non-conference and conference play last year, with Otega going 20% in Big 12 play, but finishing 37% overall from 3. So what is that going to look like overall? Off to a really darn hot start initially from 3, but it was just everything else. He was so unbelievably impactful on the defensive end. He really initiated things to get Kentucky out in transition and kind of let them go play a little bit. But his ability to single out those mismatches and say, okay, now is the time for me to go. Now is the time for me to take advantage of this one-on-one and go score at the rim. He was just so smart and so polished in those ways that I was more so thinking when I called him a sleeper that he would be a really solid six-man, that he would be just a really solid role piece. But I'm not so sure that he's not going to finish as a second or third leading scorer on this team and be this active on both ends every single night out. Otega has been the team's MVP on both ends of the floor. I mean, Lamont is up there, but Otega's just been so much better offensively that it's hard to single out anybody else as the team MVP up to this point.
I think you're spot on with it. And he has outperformed what I expected. But when you look at his game and what he's doing, he's kind of been, and I think Lamont is in the same category, but Kentucky's kind of got a couple of Swiss Army knives here where they just do so many different things that add value to your team. We talked about this guy being able to get shoulders in the lane and get to the rim and finish, but he's making stand still, catch and shoot threes. And that is, I'm telling you, Jack, it's all system based, though. It's getting to those spots and understanding the system. And when you get guys in these spots, you're getting high quality shot opportunities because you're disciplined in running the floor. They're good looks. When I watched the game, and I went back and watched it a second time this morning, I didn't see a whole lot of bad shots from Kentucky. I saw a couple in the first half. I think Jackson took one in the second half that was a long two that I was like, probably could have got something better there. But for the most part, I'm seeing good shot selection. He's a part of that. He's understanding the balance of lower my head, attack, and get to the rim, stand still, corner three. If that becomes Otega Oweh's offensive game and he's a dog defensively, look out. That's an all-league player in a lot of categories. And it's a guy that can separate Kentucky because he can be a two-way guy. And Kentucky needs some of these guys that we talk about as defensive specialists to be two-way players. You're already seeing it with Amari Williams offensively and his impact. His offensive impact is different than Otega Oweh's. Lamont Butler's offensive impact, different than Otega Oweh's. Otega, though, has been the MVP early on. Is it sustainable? We'll see. But for the most part, when you've got all these other guys that we name that you're having to worry about, it's kind of hard to just circle one guy and key in on it, because the moment that you key in on Otega Oweh, Jackson Robinson's going to hang 24, 25 on you. And the moment you try to take that away, Lamont's going to have an all-around game and go for about 16 or 17. Like, there's just so much versatility with what they can do, but so far he is leading the charge. And him being better than advertised, I think, is taking Kentucky to here.
And I swear, half of it is the confidence that Mark Pope instills in these guys to be that, how is there such a drop off in shooting efficiency for Otega between non-conference and conference play? I mean, the only separate, the talent differential is what it is. But if he's getting straight up catch and look, open threes, what difference does it make who you're playing? But there is something to be said about riding the momentum and believing in yourself to be making the shots in those moments where at the beginning of the year, you're probably thinking, yeah, man, I'm coming in with something to prove. This is my year. I'm going to hit everything that I take. You're believing in yourself. You're building up that confidence. But as soon as it kind of wavers a little bit, then you start to tank. That's how you shoot 20% in conference play. But the way Mark Pope I've talked to Otega about this in several of the media opportunities where it's like, it feels like you're taking these threes so much more confidently than you took them at Oklahoma. And he said, yeah, it's because Mark Pope says, if you do, I believe you to make this shot. If you don't take it, I'm putting your ass on the bench for somebody else that's going to take the shot in your exact position. They're going to be open looks. You have to take them, and you are going to make them. What does that do to you? And that's what we talked about with Lamont, some of these other non-shooters. What does it do to your morale and the confidence for those types of guys when you have Mark Pope in your ear constantly saying, you're the greatest shooter of all time, keep launching? I think it's sustainable. I do. I really do.
It is. It's a mindset change, but it's also an understanding of where shots are going to come from. And that's why I think having a system like this is so important, and how it pays off is when and you see it. How many times can you go, if you go back and watch that game and you count scenarios of where threes came from in the corner, or it went wing to corner one more, corner to wing one more? Like, there's a lot of them. So you're understanding where shots are coming from in this attack, in this offense, in the full court. And hey, you're getting yourself ready. Like, I'm mentally prepared right here. I'm shot ready every single time. If you know that, and then we talked about how the staff understands, player tendencies, Jack. They know where these guys are good at. And I think getting them the ball in these spots, we know Otega's, when it comes to set feet 3-point attempts, he's going to make them. Like, that's a part of his game that I think he's going to excel at. When you've got other guys around you that can space the floor and hold help and occupy help, then his ability to be crafty and get to the rim and use some of that speed and strength, it really shows up. But if he keeps knocking down the perimeter shot too, he goes to another level offensively that we've not seen from him in his college career. If he consistently can knock down shots, and we know it's not going to be a perfect shooting night every single game or 8 of 9, but understanding shot quality, where these shots are coming from, and it's not like he's really hunting them. He's just getting there. There's guys in the right spots. If you take him out and put somebody else in there, they're in that same spot and they're getting those shots. But having the ability to put it on the deck and score, in addition to taking and making threes with your feet set, I think it takes his game to another level, and I think it takes Kentucky to another level and makes them, to me, even better offensively than what I thought they could be.
And Otega has never made three-pointers in a single game his entire college basketball career. In 2 previous seasons of playing in the Big 12, he's never hit 3 in a game, and he does it in his first one. So you can at least use some of these little data points. It's a really small sample size, but you can just kind of start seeing the theme here of like what the big picture version of Otega is going to look like. I don't expect him to be a 3-for-3 3-point shooter every single game, but for him to be, up from his total of 1.7 attempts per game last season, I think you can pretty comfortably say that he's probably going to top that. He's going to live in that 3 to 4 to 5 attempts per game range, and I think that's going to be perfect for him. Shout out Otega. I picked him as my sleeper, and I think that was undervaluing what he's going to bring to the table.
Well, it's a hard roster to kind of pinpoint what they could be, right? Because there's so many guys that we're talking about that I think have already bettered themselves, and their game looks better than it did on tape before they got here. But that's where the system comes into play, and that word's probably going to be used 25 times a night. It's system-based. I'm telling you, this system is so strong, and guys are so disciplined in getting to these spots. They're fun to watch in transition. Like, without even getting to the sets that Mark Pope will carve you up like a Christmas ham, like in the half court, or turkey, whatever you choose to prefer, or whatever you prefer at Christmas or the holidays. But they get to their spots with discipline. They're sprinting there every single time, Jack, in transition. I'm telling you, there's 2 corners, and if there's not a rim runner leading the charge, it's right into the 5. It's right into Amari Williams or somebody in the middle third of the floor. And it's instant action, and they make the extra pass so well. The other thing that Kentucky does offensively, they finish cuts. Every single cut is finishing with their head under the rim just to create that space. And that right there, to me, you talk about being willing passers. I'm talking about being willing cutters. Are you going to cut like your life depends on it and finish your cut when you don't get the basketball? Because if you do that, that cut creates an opportunity for somebody else. That's the unselfishness that I'm seeing from this team, is they cut violently. And I know Jimmy Dykes used to talk all the time about violent cuts, but they cut and the head is under the rim and it's out the other side, and there's something in an action behind it. Watch them cut on Saturday when they play Bucknell. Even the guy that doesn't get the ball, he finishes his cut and boom, you're on to the next one. Like that to me is unselfish basketball. Because even though maybe you think, man, I'm really using a lot of energy here to cut, but I'm doing it for a teammate. That is the equivalent to me of someone making a 1 more, because you're giving yourself up a 1 more to get another cut in action. That's the unselfishness I see offensively from this team right now. Boy, like I was sitting here this morning just like taking notes, like, man, this is brilliant. This is beautiful. And I think it's sustainable for what they do. And I think and when I'm not getting too far ahead here, I think that's what's going to give Duke fits next Tuesday. Because Kentucky 1 game in knows who they are.
Club Blue is sustainable to what we do. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support. When you sign up, choose your sport and support with Club Blue. I also am very excited to announce, we talked about this on Monday with our new friends at Circa Sports Kentucky. Absolute blast to have them joining the fun with us here on Sources Say. The best time of the year is here, and the best app to bet college basketball is Circa Sports Kentucky. It's sports betting the way it should be, with high and transparent betting limits, the lowest holds, and exceptional customer service. It doesn't matter when they take the court, whether it's spreads, props, futures, or in games. Circa Sports is the place to bet college basketball. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 18 or older for Kentucky Gambling Problem Services. Call or text 1-800-426-2537. You talked about violent cuts before. The one guy who failed to make his violent cut in the heat of battle, rewatching film, it was the one opportunity of Kobe Brea, who had just a brilliant night overall. The one guy who just missed his dump off from Amari Williams for the easy baseline dunk was Kobe Brea. Kobe finishes with 18 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 4 of 4 from 3. He was feeling himself in such a way that he was able to launch a right corner 3. And while it was still reaching the top of its peak, turned around to the crowd, screamed, and was 2 steps down the floor when the ball sank through the net. That's why you push your NIL resources in on that guy. That's why you dedicate so much time and energy recruiting that guy over all of the blue bloods in college basketball. That's what Kobe Brea is here for. Could not have asked for a better debut from him after a couple up and down performances in some of the early preseason events.
Another key word there, corner 3. Like you're going to keep seeing it, and he's the perfect guy to get the ball to. And how about his first one, though? A read out of Zoom where a guy goes under and he just pops back. That's elite level reads from a guy that's played a lot of college basketball and understanding how to score without the ball in his hands. Like, that's when you have freshmen out there, those are reads that freshmen struggle to make. When you've got guys that have played college basketball for a long time and they understand how to get open and to make reads, that's what you get. And that's not a set play. That is an action where you make a read. If a guy's on your hip and trailing, you're coming off of it, or you're long curling, but he pops back, flares back, and gets the open 3. You can't go under on him either. Like, if you go under, it's up and under, because he's up and rising into a 3-point attempt. So you're seeing, and what I think you're seeing from him is his legs getting under him now, obviously, because he's healthy and working his way back to the version of what he was, at Dayton prior to getting to Kentucky. And you're seeing just how efficient he can be offensively. And he adds an element to this team that, when you look out there in the lineups that Mark Pope's throwing out, Jack, there's not a lot of dead spots. If there even is a dead spot, it's guys that can take and make the 3. And I'm not sure there's anybody in college basketball that takes and makes them better than Kobe Brea.
And how about the 3 for 4 from 2 that, he was kind of known coming in. He just had this reputation as like a glorified CJ Frederick, essentially, where it was like, yeah, dude made shots at the highest of high levels and, had some injury concerns, but hey, he was going to go out there and he was going to make threes. That's what he did. So for him to kind of, just get the feel, like you said, get his legs under him, and he just played with an assertiveness that you just aren't used to seeing, that we haven't seen yet out of him. The way he was just looking to get his shot off in the paint, finishing around the rim, had a couple nice little just intermediate level moves to get his shot off and finish well around the basket, 5-10 feet out. there was a lot to like. There just really was, just for him to come in with that reputation is just, hey, he's not going to defend his butt off. Like, he has some defensive limitations. He's really tall, he's long, but not super agile, not super athletic, but he's going to shoot the everlasting hell out of the basketball. We saw a little bit more out of him on top of the experience and high basketball IQ with just knowing how to get to the right spots. And like you said, just that read of him getting that corner three was just, it was magic. Like, it was one of those like Leonardo DiCaprio, Wolf of Wall Street, like as it was unfolding, just like, I've been waiting so long to see this, and I got to witness it in real time. It was perfect. It was everything you dreamed of.
Well, he's kind of been the guy that we've just not really thrown to the side, but we just were so unsure because we were so confident in the other guys that we had been seeing that we were like, how is this going to go for him? Is there going to be a guy that's kind of the odd man out? But what we're seeing is that there doesn't have to be an odd man out with these veteran players. Like, they all add an element to what Kentucky can do. And to me, Kobe's got great size that you can be impactful on the defensive end of the floor as well. But when you have a guy that understands how to get open and how to make reads, then you go to another level offensively when you've got the Otega Owehs that can touch the paint. You've got the Lamont Butlers that can get in the lane and make plays. You have a Amari Williams that can see the floor and help you space it. Like, him taking and making shots and then showcasing his game and the confidence that he's getting comfortable in the system, I think is another area that Kentucky can just continue to impress and really go to another level of what they can be. And I think that they're winning people over with 2 exhibitions and a season opener. I think people are looking at this and saying, oh man, like, that's a fun system to watch. And if you're entertaining and you're also good, then I think you get a lot more respect. And I think a lot of people, like, there's people that are probably on the fence right now that next Tuesday will put them on one side or the other of how Kentucky performs. But a guy like Kobe Brea can help you get over the hump a week from now in a matchup versus Duke. All these veteran players that have played a ton of college basketball, Jack, that is why I think Kentucky is going to put a ton of pressure on Duke in Atlanta, is they're just so old. And the way Kentucky is going to be who it is and run these things, I think Duke's going to hit some adversity in that game, and can Kentucky shoot it well enough, and can they rebound and defend well enough? And if they do that, I think they can pull off an upset.
And that's something. Well, let's talk about that matchup. We're going to do a couple more shows, so we're going to have during basketball season. We're going to try to do our post game show like this one the day after every single game, but thank goodness we now have Mark Pope doing weekly Thursday night Thursday day press conferences. So we now actually get to dive into a little bit. So we're going to do kind of a quicker show Thursday or Friday to split the difference between the Tuesday and Saturday games, or whatever the difference is going to be. So this week's schedule is going to be tonight. We'll go Thursday after Pope, and then we'll do another post game for Bucknell that it will also preview the Duke game. So that's going to be kind of, so we'll do a deeper dive on Duke specifically on Sunday. But I'm feeling the same way. I really am. Like, I watched Duke. I watched, their performance. Obviously, there's a lot to love about Con Knipple. He's kind of getting the same Reed Shepherd love of a guy who came in as the 4-star who, really thrived at the high school level where he was at, but could he do it at a blue blood? Exact same questions with Reed. He has gone above and beyond early on, has been the star of the summer, all of that. So oddly enough, I think he's at the top of my scouting report for Kentucky more than even Cooper Flagg. I know Cooper is the sexy pick that everyone wants to talk about. How do you slow him down? What's going to be the game plan? And you do, but I have this hunch and this feel that you have a stopper for one and you have a stopper in a vacuum for the other, that if you put Lamont on, if you want to put Lamont on Con and you want to put Otega on Cooper, everything else kind of plays out in a pretty favorable fashion, where they got to guard us too. Like, they got to guard our actions and our spacing and the ball movement and all those things. So I've seen a lot to really, really like where Kentucky stands, especially on the. I mean, they're going to be loose. I mean, Lamont Butler hit a game winner in the Final Four. Like, what does he give a hell about? Atlanta Champions Classic at State Farm Arena. Like that game didn't mean anything to him in terms of nerves and those sorts of things. So I think there is just a lot to like about Kentucky's chances. Not guaranteeing a win, but I don't envision any type of like blowout. Kentucky's going to get run out the gym. I just don't think that's going to
happen. Kentucky's winning the game. Like I'm confident Kentucky's winning that game. I called it a few weeks ago, but I'm even more confident and feeling better about it. And the reason being is I just expect Kentucky to be the more disciplined team because I think it's going to be a close game. And I think that these guys understand and know who they are as veteran players, that I expect them to be disciplined in that matchup and be who they are. And when you put it all together, I think the system gets Kentucky an early win. And for me, Mark Pope, a lot of credit in his first 2 weeks as the official head coach when it comes to coaching in basketball games. Like this is really the start of the Mark Pope era. Even though it started in April, this is the actual start. This is where the honeymoon phase is over and you're kind of trying to figure out now, what does this look like in year one? This is a great opportunity. I don't want to get ahead of Bucknell because that's the game before the game and you don't want to see them have a letdown looking ahead. And I don't think they will because of that discipline that I'm talking about. This is a disciplined team in all areas of the basketball game. Are there areas that they need to get better at and will improve? And will they have some weaknesses? Yes. I don't know how much of that has been exposed yet. I'm going to watch some tape, obviously, on Duke going into that game. Hopefully we can, talk about it and stuff leading up to it. But I think Kentucky's discipline and who they are and discipline within their system can give Kentucky an advantage going into that game that maybe Kentucky wouldn't have as much of in January if the two teams met. Because I do think Duke is a team that's ceiling is just going it's really high, and I think they're going to end up getting closer and closer to it as the season goes along. But Kentucky being who it is with the discipline that they have in their system, I think gives them an excellent chance to not just go down there and compete, but I think they win the basketball game.
When you look at the grand scheme of things with just the trajectory of the program, optimism surrounding the program, the national perspective of this and just the perception of like, hey, Mark Pope's Kentucky program is the real deal. What would a win over Duke do? Like we just saw Circus Sports, shout out Circus Sports Kentucky, just released its updated national championship odds, and Kentucky comes in at 13th overall after kind of the first run of games.
Yeah.
What does a Duke win on the grand scheme of things, and just in terms of people looking at what the future of Kentucky basketball looks like under Pope?
I think it elevates Kentucky into the conversation as a top 10 team in the country, which doesn't matter right now. Like if Kentucky were to lose this game, it doesn't really do anything when it comes to what they can become in March and getting in an NCAA tournament and having success. But I think what it does is it gets those people that are kind of just watching this thing and thinking Kentucky's not talented enough in year one under Mark Pope. It obviously changes the entire conversation. I think the film already, if you watch the film and you understand the game at even a basic level, I think you can tell that they do things very well and they're structured and they're disciplined. It's the discipline for me that I'm going to keep talking about that I'm seeing in getting to where you are. And it's unselfish discipline that I was talking about earlier. When you're that connected in early November, it gives you a significant advantage because I think when you get in that game on Tuesday night, there's going to be adversity hit both sides. I think Kentucky's built better to handle that adversity in early November than Duke is, if that makes any sense. And when you get into January, February, I think you could have a different conversation. Duke has gone through some of those battles. Now, I get it. Kentucky, as this core, they haven't gone through them. But these guys, Jack, have had plenty of adversity in their careers. Lamont Butler on the biggest of stages.
That's the one.
Like that, to me, at the lead guard spot, when you've got this advantage that you've been in these dogfights, I think it takes you to another level. And I think Kentucky has those guys at the right spots on the floor that when adversity hits, late first half, mid first half, late second, early second. I just think Kentucky's built to withstand that on November 12th better than Duke is. Even though Duke has a lot of top end talent, I just think Kentucky's system and the discipline and who they are, I think, is enough to carry them.
Yeah, I completely agree. A couple other quick standouts before we move past Wright State completely. Ansley Almanor. It was just really funny, kind of same way we talked about Otega, where it was like, we just kind of got to know who he is, what he brings to the table, because the role that he's going to fill is going to be great. But is he anything special as an athlete? Is anything special as like a superstar shooter, whatever? We'll see. Those things are still up in the air. But that was why you loved Ansley this offseason leading up to the year for that reason. I had been down on Ansley a little bit leading up to this point. I think he had been fine, but just not stepping up in that 8th man role, 7th man role, where I just kind of thought that he would emerge and be like, that's your knockdown shooter off the bench. That's going to be the guy that comes in and he's going to give you the, couple big energy plays, knock down a 3, and then get subbed out. And he just kind of not in the right place at the right times at times, just an up and down start for sure. And then we kind of see the best version of him against Wright State. And I really, really loved watching it back on film, because it just did seem like, when there was a rebound to grab, he was there to grab it. When there was an open 3 to hit, he hit it. When there was a bucket to finish inside, to just kind of keep things moving, Ansley was that guy. He was just kind of the spot filler across the floor. And if that's going to be his role, 11 points, 5 of 7 shooting in 13 minutes, that's going to be an unbelievably valuable piece for Kentucky to really, really cherish as the year goes on. Just knowing that, he's going to be the guy that shots aren't always going to fall. Sometimes the turnovers are going to rack up a little bit too much. Sometimes you're going to get some defensive let-ups and different things like that. Ansley just really is a nice safety net at your 7th, 8th, 9th man position that I'm feeling a lot better for him in the future after seeing him after game 1.
That's why I've said and why I've thought that he's the best suited for his role in this program. He's not a great individual player, but he's great at his role player. And he's really good at it. And I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to take and make shots for you. You saw him how many times have you seen him get to that corner and knock down that corner 3 or that one more on the wing? How about the 45 cut that he made out of the post touch to Andrew Carr last night? Another guy that's understanding how to play in space. He knows who he is. He knows he's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He knows that he possibly could be 8 or 9, but in 8 or 9, he's elite in that number.
Yeah, it tremendous. I really, really enjoyed it. And like even a guy like Kirk Kriisa, 0 points, 0 for 2 shooting. He was the guy I kind of thought would step up a little bit more scoring wise as his feet got under him coming back from injury. Didn't get to score, but 5 assists, probably could have had a couple others, had a couple missed layups, got some fouls called, on dishes. So didn't get what I was hoping for from a scoring perspective, but as a facilitator and just change of pace guard, he's tremendous. I really, really enjoy watching him play. Not his best effort, but still a lot to like. He's a high intensity guy. He's going to just go 135% at all times. So I really, really enjoy watching Kerr play. Same with Lamont Butler. 14 points, had a couple missed gimmies at the rim, some that he definitely like to have back, but 14 points, 6 of 12 shooting, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Mark Pope said afterward that his goal is to get 3 steals a game. That's just how he operates, how, he, when you go in as a defensive player of the year candidate, you kind of set a goal for yourself of I'm going to get 3 steals every single game, and one way or another, I'm going to get it. So he performed really well. There wasn't one guy that was just, oh my God, the best of the best. There wasn't one guy that stunk out loud. It was everybody fitting in that, no fewer than 13 minutes in the main rotation, no more than 27 minutes. no more than 21 points, no fewer than 6 with Brandon Garrison. Everybody's stuck in that little window. And Mark Pope said it. He wants 10 guys in his rotation as long as there's no injuries, as long as fatigue, foul trouble, things like that, those don't come into play. He wants his rotation to be long. He wants it to be deep. He wants it to be a 10-man rotation where that's going to be kind of the norm. That was kind of his MO at BYU. It's going to be something very, very similar this season. And I think they have the pieces. They have the formula to make that happen.
Yeah, they have good balance. And I think they're going to have really good balance within their rotation. And if he wants to play 10, then I think that better prepares you to avoid some injuries, for some overuse for some guys. If you can find that balance and get the 9 or 10 guys played, then I think it helps you sustain your health and longevity as you go throughout the season. So if there's 10 guys that deserve to play minutes, I think Mark Pope is going to find those minutes within the system, and they'll do some things. And right now I still feel like that you're just getting maybe a taste of what they can be and what they're going to do, both offensively, defensively. You're going to get in, and the situations change. Like when you're talking 103-62 win, you're talking 71-point wins in exhibitions. It's not situational basketball when it comes down to possession by possession games. They're going to be in one of those a week from today. And when they get into that situation, you're going to see some things that Kentucky's going to do. You'll see some different decisions being made than what are being made right now. Those will be some of the questions that get answered as you move forward. And I think that's probably the one area right now that we just don't know. What do we see Kentucky do in a tight game? Who do they go to? Is it a system-led thing? Is it through Jackson Robinson? Is it through Amari Williams? Is it through Lamont Butler, Otega Oweh? Like those things will make itself known. How often does he mix it up defensively? Does he change up ball screen coverage? Like things like that. Those are the areas that you just don't get to see right now that situations will determine as we move forward. But if you're going to play 9 or if you're going to play 10, I think it bodes well for him moving forward.
Yeah. John P. Ryan asked, what do you see from Colin Chandler? Not what I saw rewatching the tape after, as optimistic as I was leaving the Minnesota State game. He was fine. Not a net negative, but another one of those guys where, that's probably a guy that I'm going to have circled going into Bucknell. Hope that he kind of follows up a performance with a really, really solid finish with 2 points, 0 for 1 shooting, 2 for 2 from the line, 2 assists, one steal, one foul in 15 minutes. He was just a guy. I thought he showed some defensive upside. I think he's as he's just kind of figuring himself out, getting his legs underneath him and getting back to game speed, he's going to have type of moments like this where he's going to look like a superstar for, future lottery pick. And there are going to be other games where he floats a little bit and disappears and kind of lets other people stand out a little bit. Jackson Robinson kind of had some spurts like that where he really took off to close out the end of the first half and was basically a no-show in the second half. So, when you have as many pieces as Kentucky has, you're going to have moments like that where you're not going to have 10 guys scoring 15 points a game or else you're the Monstars. Like it just doesn't work that way. So just odd man out in this game, but I'm expecting bigger and better against Bucknell.
I am too, across the board. Obviously, when it comes to if you're going to play 9, if you're going to play 10, they're going to be guys, Jack, that are going to have the highs and they're going to have the lows. And you're going to have guys that are going to have their night. It's their matchup, and then some guys that don't have it. And I think when you're talking about Colin Chandler, this is a season where he's getting his feet wet. He's going to have games where he's going to showcase his potential, and I think he's going to have games where maybe he doesn't show up as much on tape as what he would on some others. So there's going to be games to build some confidence. I don't really know what this rotation is going to look like until that first true test against Duke. That's where it's going to determine, okay, where does Mark Pope go here? And there's so many areas that we're not really even familiar with yet with this team, like with Kirk Rissa. How does his role increase as he gets more comfortable within what they do? Kobe Brea still doing some things. Like, does his role increase? Does the minutes go up? So we'll figure it out, and we'll see exactly what happens.
Yeah. Real quick before we start wrapping this thing up, another message where things are going to start getting crazy again with basketball season. So with our ad read, so let's just keep rolling through all of these to keep them fit in. Game Time is back. If you thought the atmosphere at Rupp Arena was crazy for Rupp State, for Wright State, Rupp Arena, Wright State, you get what I'm saying. Just imagine what it's going to be like for the rest of Mark Pope's debut season. Better yet, be there with Game Time. You get the sounds from the court, the feel of the crowd, and don't forget the celebrity sightings. That's not just for Kentucky games, but all sports and events, including concerts and shows. Use Game Time and its new feature called Game Time Picks to make your life even easier, filtering out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. We've shown you the app. We've had a ton of experience with it. Sean, I know you're a massive fan of Game Time. You use it in the past. I'm looking up the tickets for Bucknell on Saturday. You can get some of the best seats. I'm using the Game Time Picks right now. 195. It picks it for me. Great corner end zone seats. 195 for both all-in tickets. I mean, you just can't get better than what we see at a Game Time. Game in and game out.
No, and then the ability to see where you're sitting and the view before you even get to the game. And I know there's some people that probably haven't been to Rupp Arena, and now's a good time to get there, right? Like second official game of the Mark Pope era, facing the Fighting Nate Sestinas on Saturday. Like, I wonder who Nate's pulling for in that matchup. Maybe Nate can use Game Time to get in there and get a good seat. But
we should have him on the Thursday show to preview the Bucknell game. I think that well,
I think it would be. I think it would be a good idea. But no, Game Time, obviously, they've been a friend of ours for a long time now, and they've never let me down. I've watched the Cincinnati Reds in person, and now that I'm obviously, not sitting on press row beside of you, Game Time is going to be my way to get seats at Rupp Arena as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. All-in pricing, that's my favorite part of it. I'm sick and tired of the fees that pop up out of nowhere. You have no idea where they're coming from, and it doubles the cost once you get to your cart. Nobody wants that. Nobody loves that. Make sure you get that out of it with all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, as Sean says, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You cannot go wrong. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code KSR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Sean, a couple more things before we get out of here. It's been very peaceful. I know today is a very stressful, tense day. We wanted to kind of be an outlet for a lot of you guys that wanted to escape that, like right now, especially. So we appreciate all you guys tuning in. The numbers, we kind of had this thought of, Sean, the numbers were either going to be massive tonight or dead, like totally non-existent. And we're definitely trending more toward the better end of the number. So we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and just kind of having some fun and getting some peace and quiet a little bit, just to kind of focusing on the fun stuff in life with basketball. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Now, any other takeaways that you want to hit on before we wrap up Wright State and kind of move into kind of what's next?
No, I talked a little bit on Twitter this morning about just how Kentucky moves the ball so well across the midline. And, I've got some film stuff that I'll probably put out in the next couple of days about some sets and some things that kind of show who Kentucky is. But just the ball, Jack, when we're talking about what this team does offensively, they're making you guard the full 94 and 50. Like 94 feet, the whole length of the floor, and 50 foot sideline to sideline. Like, they make you guard the entire length of the floor. And I think that's so refreshing and so exciting to see just how good they can be offensively. And I do think that we're just now seeing what they can be at the very beginning. And I think they can add to it moving forward.
Kind of, I hate, this can't just be a show where everything we talk about is, oh my God, this is the best performance Kentucky's ever seen. We're never going to lose a game. Like, finding that balance of, hey, we're really, really optimistic about where things stand. The team is very, very good, while also pointing out some of the negatives. Brandon Garrison, in my opinion, not his best effort. 6 points, 2 of 6 shooting. Some spurts had 5 assists, 4 fouls, unfortunately, before rebounds, 2 steals. So had some spurts again, but got a little bit too shot focused and wanting to get his game off a little bit rather than letting the offense kind of move organically. Just not, hurdles that you expect from one of the younger pieces on the team. Not one of his better efforts. Like we said, Colin Chandler, not one of his better efforts. Kirk Reese is still kind of waiting for his Kirk Reese, a moment where we know it's coming. It's just kind of when that's happening. So some of those guys that I have my eye on, and then, Jackson was a little bit of a no-show in the second half. So I'm kind of hoping that those 4 that we named are going to be the standouts against Bucknell. I think it's very, very possible. And maybe some of the other guys that we're talking about have let down performances. But this kind of, what are you wanting to see against Bucknell? What are the next steps now that we, there's a sense of ease and just like a sigh of relief knowing that the team's going to be good. It's not like we woke up on, you have the nerves going into the opener of, oh shoot, what if we lose this? Like what do we do if we go out there and stink? We kind of have that behind us now, the nerves of just this team stinking. Now that we know that it's a good team, potentially very good team, we'll see about them being great. How have you kind of refocused as we kind of go into Bucknell, and then especially going into next week against Duke?
I think, to me, that the biggest thing that I'm looking for is this going to be an elite rebounding team? Because I think that could be an area that really holds them back. If you're going to be this good in transition, if you can rebound, that gets you going in transition. That takes away opportunities, obviously, and helps your defensive numbers as well. And then I would say, once we get into it and you get into these games that are going to test you, do you have guys that are going to go to the free throw line and make those 2? Mm-hmm. Like, if you can get those 2 areas of the game and be good in those, then I think it kind of separates you with all these other areas that you're really good at as well. Now, obviously, you can't be great at everything. I just don't think you can be horrible at something. And if you can be great at a few things and have some balance in some others and be okay and not have it be a liability, then I think this team can kind of reach where it wants to go. But I'm watching rebounding against really good teams, and obviously I want to see if they're able to make free throws in clutch moments. Right now, we've not seen a clutch moment yet, so it's hard to really know.
Yeah, it's a great point. Mark Pope kind of singled out the offensive rebounding as kind of a growing issue with this team. Put out kind of at last Thursday's press conference is like his warning message of like, hey, the offensive rebounding, the way we launch shots, it has just not been good enough up to this point. It has to be better. They go out and go for 7 offensive rebounds, which is still not enough for what Pope is looking for on that end of the floor. So definitely, I agree, definitely something that we need to see. But I mean, when you go 39 made baskets with 30 assists, only 7 turnovers, I mean, really, really not a lot to nitpick about this performance, Sean. It really was an impressive performance and a lot to build off of as we go in. Again, you just kind of, like I said, you got to be nitpicky about some things because it's a basketball show and we got to talk for an hour. It's not like we, can be on here for 20 minutes, say, well, this was good, this was good, this was good, let's get the hell out of here. Got to have some, dig in a little bit deeper on some of the flaws that are very clearly fixable and definitely not long-term concerns.
No, I don't think there's anything long-term yet to be concerned about. Obviously, I need probably 3, 4, 5 more games before I start worrying if there's an issue that they can improve on. So right now, I feel really good about where they are, and I feel good about where they're going, but we'll see if all these things are sustainable.
Well, let's get out of here with that, Sean. This is a lot of fun. One heck of an opener for Mark Pope. Couldn't ask for a better night. The vibes in the building were just unbelievable. The energy with the fans. I mean, it was almost a completely full crowd, which you just never see against teams like Wright State early in the non-conference. So really, really big shout out to BBN. They were incredible as always, but definitely took it to a different level for Mark Pope's debut. But I kind of expect it to continue. I think Matt on the show brought up a really good point that it just feels like the fan base has been waiting for something to kind of pour their energy into and kind of like, man, we haven't been to a Final Four since 2015. We're waiting for our moment. Football is crap in the bed once again. We're just waiting for that, something to pour this energy into, and it really does feel like this is that moment that they're choosing to pour their energy into. So it was a really cool moment to be there last night, but I think it's going to be a consistent theme. I think if you're a fan, as we talked about with Game Time, now there is literally not a better time to go attend these games and be there in person. Go do it. Go enjoy this. Be a part of this history. I got the newspaper clipping that came from that they handed out in the eruption zone. I took one of those because it was a really cool, memorable night that you just kind of had to, you'll remember for a really long time. So looking forward to a whole lot more of them starting on Saturday against Bucknell. Sean, let's get out of here. Where can fans find your work?
You can follow me at _Coach S. Smith. There it is.
And I guess we do have one last topic to talk about. What did you get with the Louisville crowd, their debut? Obviously, they beat Morehead State pretty soundly, 93-45, but can't fill up the Yum Center. Kind of a crazy sequence of events that, as you see this picture, 2 seconds into the game, I mean, we're live at the opening tip, and the crowd is at what, 40% capacity, maybe 50% capacity. We've been dunking on Pat Kelsey and talking about, lifting him up, seeing how many we can, lift him like a dumbbell. But I don't know, kind of underwhelming just in terms of like the energy has been great. It did feel like the rivalry has been where it kind of needs to be. And I just can't believe that the fan support just isn't where it should be at this stage.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about it, honestly, because I think that their fan base is really holding on to anything that they can find to kind of be motivated. And I think right now they have some reason to kind of back it and be motivated. And I mean, they're going to have opportunities. They've got great opportunities coming up, so we'll see. But I was shocked that there wasn't a ton of people there, especially playing an in-state opponent too, and things. But overall, really, I didn't see that coming. I thought that the excitement that we've got out of them and heard from them since the hire to Pat Kelsey, I thought that the building would be closer to full, maybe not full, but a lot better than what we saw in that picture. But then again, Jack, like you're talking about a program that it's been a bit since they've really had something to kind of be motivated about. So maybe they're kind of just being cautious and seeing, do they beat some of these better teams on their schedule? And I mean, they have opportunities coming up. So like if they win a game or two, I would expect that place to be closer to full.
Yeah, and ticket prices are expensive. I saw I think Nick Coffey was talking about the ticket prices, and I get that, but like there are other avenues to get ticket prices, as we've talked about with Game Time. You can get them at other places. Resellers, I'm sure would like to get some type of money from them. I don't understand like how there weren't more butts in seats with the level of excitement. I just wonder what type of apathy, like, yes, there's maybe a vocal minority of the crowd that's unbelievably excited for Pat Kelsey, and they should be. I think he's a great coach, but how much of the Kenny Payne era and the last kind of just cycle of Louisville basketball really just kind of made them totally apathetic and saying, I'm not going to go all the way in until I'm absolutely certain that this is not going to be another circus. I think Saturday against Tennessee is going to be a massive test. Yeah. That's going to be fun. I'm excited to see how that one goes.
Now, I'm pretty sure they're having a whiteout for that game. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that today, or I think it was today. But I would expect the crowd to show up for that one, and that's the one. Like if you can beat Tennessee, then I think that fan base will obviously have a reason to be excited. That's a game that intrigues me though, because I think Tennessee is going to have some issues scoring the basketball at times this year. I think they're still going to be built around a defensive presence and approach, but two intriguing teams. Is Louisville going to be good enough in year one? Is Tennessee going to take a step back? I don't know yet, but that's an early season matchup that you have your eyes on, because then you kind of get some things answered, just like you're going to get Kentucky and Duke a week from now. That's going to answer some questions as well.
Some questions I don't have are, is Kentucky's fan base better? Can they fill up an exhibition game more than a regular season game for Louisville at the Yum Center? all those things. And yes, we can still bench press Pat Kelsey and feel very, very confident about it. Sean, this was a blast. Appreciate you coming on as always and just kind of getting this thing rolling. It's time to kind of start a new era. We feel the excitement of the fresh start with Mark Pope's debut at Kentucky. So appreciate you guys following along. We'll be back again on Thursday to recap whatever Mark Pope said, any of the developments throughout the week, maybe hit on some recruiting stuff, kind of the placeholder. We like that middle, the show between the two games to kind of be just the everything we missed that we can't hit on in an hour show. So we're excited to kind of add that to our rotation. And then we'll be back with Sean again on Sunday to recap, hopefully, another big win over Bucknell and preview a really, really, really big one against Duke on Tuesday. We'll see you next time.